That night was supposed to be perfect. I had spent weeks drowning in work, coming home late, exhausted, barely having time to eat, let alone spend quality time with Emily. I kept telling myself, just one more project, just one more late night at the office, and then I'll make it up to her. But time kept slipping away, and I could feel the distance growing between us. So when I finally wrapped up my biggest project yet, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. Surprise her. I left the office earlier than I had in months, grabbed a bottle of her favorite wine, a deep red she always claimed tasted like heaven, and even picked up dessert from that little bakery she loved downtown. The whole way home, I imagined the look on her face when I walked through the door. Maybe she'd throw her arms around me, laugh about how shocked she was, and we'd spend the night like we used to, curled up on the couch, lost in each other, forgetting the rest of the world. That's what I wanted. That's what I thought was going to happen. But the moment I stepped inside, I knew something was wrong. It was the silence. A thick, heavy kind of silence. Normally, Emily would have music playing, some old indie playlist she loved, the sound filling the house, drifting through the rooms. If she wasn't listening to music, then the TV would be on, even if she wasn't watching it. She hated silence, said it made the house feel too empty. But tonight, nothing. Just the dull hum of the refrigerator. The faint creak of the wooden floor beneath my feet. The air felt off. I set the wine and dessert down on the counter, my pulse suddenly hammering in my ears. Maybe she was asleep, but that didn't make sense. It wasn't that late. Maybe she had stepped out, but then why were her shoes by the door? Then I noticed the lights. They were dimmed, not off, just low, casting long, eerie shadows against the walls. Like she hadn't expected anyone to come home yet. Like she was setting a mood. I swallowed hard, a cold sensation creeping down my spine. My gut twisted, that instinctual feeling, the one you ignore because you don't want to believe it, the one that whispers something isn't right. And then I saw it. The back door. It was unlocked. Emily never left the doors unlocked. Never. It was a habit, one she had drilled into me early in our relationship. She'd double-check the locks every night before bed. She'd nag me if I forgot. So why now? Why tonight? My hands felt clammy as I reached for the doorknob, pushing it slightly. The cool night air seeped in, carrying a faint scent of something unfamiliar. Something musky. Something that didn't belong to me. A sound came from upstairs. A soft, hurried shuffle. A whisper. And suddenly, I couldn't breathe. I wasn't alone. I set the wine down on the kitchen counter, my hands suddenly feeling unsteady. Something in the air wasn't right. It was too quiet, too still. The kind of silence that wasn't just absence of sound, but the presence of something unseen, something that didn't belong. That's when I noticed it. The back door. It was slightly ajar, not wide open, not enough to be immediately obvious, but enough for a thin sliver of night air to creep in, brushing against my skin. Enough for the scent of the outside world, cool, damp earth, the distant smell of someone burning wood in their fireplace, to mix with the warmth of my home. And the lock. It was undone. A chill prickled down my spine. Emily never left doors unlocked. Never. It was a rule, a habit she drilled into me from the very beginning. Every night before bed, she'd double-check them. If I forgot, she'd roll her eyes and say, "You can't just assume we're safe, babe. People do terrible things when you least expect it." But now here it was, unlocked, open, like someone had left in a hurry. Or worse, like someone had come inside. I took a slow step forward, my breath coming faster. My heart thumped against my ribs, my pulse now a steady drumbeat in my ears. I reached out, gripping the cold metal handle of the door. It was damp with condensation, the night's chill still clinging to it. I pushed it slightly, just enough to hear it creak. And then, a sound, soft, barely audible. Upstairs. I froze. Every muscle in my body tensed. A whisper. Faint. Urgent. Two voices. One was Emily's. The other, a man's. My grip on the doorknob tightened, my knuckles going white. The sound of their voices sent a shockwave through my chest. Rage, disbelief, panic, all at once. My ears strained, trying to catch their words. It was muffled, but I heard just enough to make my blood run cold. You have to go. Now. Emily's voice. Sharp, desperate. And then the other voice. Low, controlled. A man's voice. Relax. He's not home yet. My stomach twisted violently. My head swam. My hands suddenly numb. Not home yet? My heart slammed against my ribs. My mind was screaming at me, 1,000 thoughts colliding at once. I wasn't supposed to be home yet. She wasn't expecting me. I swallowed the bile, rising in my throat. My legs felt like lead, but somehow I forced myself to move. One step, then another. I barely noticed that my breathing had changed, shallow, uneven, shaking. Emily was upstairs, with him, and they had no idea I was standing right here. I froze. For a moment, I thought my mind was playing tricks on me. Maybe it was the wind outside, or the hum of the refrigerator distorting sounds in the empty house. But then I heard it again, a voice. Low, male, not mine. I sucked in a sharp breath, my body going rigid. I wasn't alone. Emily was upstairs. But she wasn't alone. My pulse thundered in my ears, my senses suddenly sharper than ever. I could hear the faint creak of the wooden floor above me, the shuffle of feet. Not one pair. Two. I wasn't the paranoid type. I never doubted her, never checked her phone, never assumed the worst. But right now, every single instinct in my body was screaming at me. Something was wrong. My stomach twisted, a sharp, sinking weight settling in my gut. I took a step forward, careful, slow. The hallway leading to our bedroom suddenly felt longer, darker. The walls seemed to close in, the dim light from the living room stretching shadows across the floor. And then, another whisper. Urgent. Desperate. Emily's voice. You have to go. Now. I stopped dead in my tracks. My hands curled in a fist at my sides. She wasn't just talking to someone, she was hiding someone. Blood roared in my ears, my heart slamming against my ribs like it was trying to escape. Every step I took felt heavier, like I was wading through something thick and invisible. The air was suffocating. Who the hell was in my house? Another muffled voice. A man's. I couldn't make out the words, but his tone was different now, calm. Controlled. Not panicked. Not scrambling. Like he belonged here. My mind raced through possibilities. A friend? A family member? Someone who had stopped by unexpectedly? But no. Why was she whispering? Why was she telling him to leave? I swallowed hard, my throat dry as sandpaper. I stepped closer to the bedroom door. My fingers grazed the cool brass handle, my pulse hammering so hard I thought it might shake the walls. Emily's voice came again, closer this time. Please go. He'll be home soon. Home soon? I clenched my jaw. She still thought I wasn't here. She still thought she had time. They thought they had time. My grip tightened around the doorknob. My breath was uneven now, short and sharp. I felt something inside me shift, an emotion I couldn't quite name yet. Not just anger, not just betrayal, something darker. I had walked into my own home and found myself the stranger. I wasn't waiting anymore. I turned the handle and shoved the door open. I swallowed hard, my throat dry as sandpaper. My body felt disconnected, like I was watching myself move but had no control over it. Every instinct screamed at me to turn around, to walk away before I saw something I couldn't unsee. But I couldn't. My feet felt like lead as I walked down the hallway. Our hallway toward the bedroom. My bedroom. The place that was supposed to be safe, sacred mine. But tonight it wasn't. The door was cracked open just enough for a sliver of dim light to spill into the hallway, casting jagged shadows on the floor. Shadows that moved. I stopped just outside, my breath shallow, my pulse hammering in my ears. I could feel the heat rising up my neck, a mix of rage, dread, and something worse, something uncontrollable. My mind raced with possibilities, each one more sickening than the last. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe I'd step inside, and Emily would be alone, sitting on the edge of the bed, waiting for me with an innocent smile, confused as to why I looked like I had just seen a ghost. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe I'd laugh about this later, tell her how my mind had twisted something simple into something sinister. Maybe I'd joke about how stress had finally made me paranoid. Maybe, and then I saw it, a figure, a man, moving inside my bedroom. I froze, my blood turning to ice. My stomach twisted so violently I thought I might be sick. This wasn't a nightmare. This was real. He was inside my room, in the soft glow of the bedside lamp. I could see his silhouette. Tall, broad shoulders, moving too casually, too comfortably, like he had been here before. Like he belonged. I didn't think. I didn't breathe. I just fell to the snap. That breaking point. That moment when everything inside you shatters and you stop being reasonable. Stop being the person you were 5 minutes ago. I slammed my hand against the door and shoved it open so hard it crashed into the wall. Emily gasped. The man's head snapped up. And I was done playing games. I didn't knock. I didn't hesitate. Every fiber of my being was on fire. Every muscle coiled, so tightly I thought I might snap. My breath came in sharp, uneven bursts, my vision blurred with rage. My heart was hammering, but my mind was eerily clear, clearer than it had ever been. I shoved the door open. Hard. The wood slammed against the wall with a deafening bang, the force of it rattling the picture frames. The sound sliced through the thick, suffocating tension like a gunshot. And then chaos. Emily gasped. A sharp, panicked sound, as if I had caught her mid-crime. She spun around, her wide, terrified eyes locking onto mine, her entire body frozen in place. She was standing near the bed, her posture stiff, her arms clutched around herself like she was bracing for impact. Her hair was slightly tousled, strands falling loose around her face in a way that felt wrong. Too casual, too intimate. She looked like someone who had just been touched. My stomach churned violently. My gaze swept the room like a predator scanning its territory, searching, demanding an answer. And that's when I saw it. The sheets. The blankets on my bed weren't pulled back neatly like they usually were. They were slightly rumpled, uneven, like someone had been sitting there, like someone had been there. My pulse spiked dangerously high. My fists curled so tightly my nails dug into my palms. Emily's breathing was shallow, erratic. Her lips parted, trembling. I could see the guilt in her face. Could almost hear the frantic thoughts racing through her head as she searched for a way out of this. And then she said it. That sentence. That cliché, pathetic, infuriating sentence. It's not what it looks like. A slow, burning wave of rage crawled up my spine, spreading through my chest like wildfire. I felt something inside me snap. I let out a cold, bitter laugh, a short, humorless sound that tasted like acid on my tongue. Not what it looks like. Really? That's the best she had? Not, I can explain. Not, wait, let me tell you the truth. Not even, I'm sorry. Just that empty, meaningless, overused phrase. I took a step forward, my voice dangerously low. Then tell me, Emily, what exactly does it look like? She opened her mouth, then closed it again. No words came out. Nothing. Because there was no explanation that would make this okay. And then, I heard it. A sound behind me. Soft, subtle, but unmistakable. A floorboard creaking. Emily's eyes flickered past me, towards something behind my back. And in that instant, I knew I wasn't alone. I stood there, breathing hard, every muscle in my body locked in place, my entire world threatening to come apart at the seams. My eyes darted across the room, scanning every inch, looking for the truth. The bed wasn't ruffled. The pillows were in place. No obvious signs of anything physical, but that didn't mean anything, because I knew. I felt it, that suffocating presence in the air, that invisible weight pressing against my chest. Someone was here. I took a slow, deliberate step forward, my shoes pressing into the carpet. The room suddenly felt smaller, as if the walls were closing in, as if the air itself had thickened with something unseen but undeniable. Emily hadn't moved. She just stood there, her arms still wrapped around herself, her entire body screaming guilt. She swallowed hard, her lips parting as though she wanted to speak, but no words came out. Her eyes flickered toward me, wide, glassy, terrified. I tilted my head slightly, my voice dangerously calm. "Then what exactly does it look like, Emily?" She flinched, took a step back, pressing herself against the edge of the nightstand like she was cornered. I can explain," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Explain? Explain what? Explain why my instincts were screaming? Explain why the house felt wrong the second I stepped inside? Explain why she looked like she had just been caught in the act? Explain why, for the first time in our relationship, I looked at her and saw a stranger?" I took another step, my pulse hammering. I could hear my own breathing, sharp, uneven, growing heavier with every second. And then I heard it, a sound, a soft, slow, deliberate creak. My blood turned to ice. I knew that sound. It wasn't a car outside. It wasn't the pipes. It wasn't the wind. It was the sound of a closet door creaking open. My entire body tensed, my breath catching in my throat. My heart slammed against my ribs, adrenaline spiking so hard I felt it in my fingertips. Emily's face paled. I didn't move. I didn't blink, because I knew whoever was hiding in there was about to step out, and I had no idea who it was, or what I was about to see. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. Every muscle in my body locked into place, a slow-burning fire spreading through my chest. The room felt smaller, the walls closing in, suffocating me. The only sound was the faint creak of the closet door, inch by inch, slowly opening. My heart pounded so hard I swore they could hear it. My hands clenched into fists, my nails digging into my palms, my jaw tightening so much it ached. And then he walked out, a shadow at first, a silhouette against the dim light. And for a split second I thought, maybe it's a stranger. Maybe it's some random guy, some reckless idiot who thought he could sneak into my house, into my marriage, into my life without consequence. But then I saw his face, and everything inside me went cold. I knew him. My breath hitched. My stomach twisted into a painful knot, nausea rising in my throat. The heat of my anger didn't disappear. It turned into something else. Something worse. Betrayal. The kind that knocks the air out of your lungs. He wasn't just anyone. He was someone I trusted. My world tilted, my mind racing to catch up with what my eyes were seeing. My hands were shaking now, but not from fear, from something much darker, something dangerous. His face was blank, too blank. He didn't look surprised. He didn't look scared. He just stood there, like he had been waiting for this moment, waiting for me to find out. Emily sucked in a sharp breath, stepping forward as if to stop me, to say something, to lie to me again. But I wasn't looking at her anymore. My eyes were locked on him, and for the first time since stepping into that house, since stepping into this nightmare, I realized this wasn't just about an affair. This was something bigger, something I wasn't ready for. I took a step back, like the air had been knocked from my lungs. The entire world tilted, spinning so fast I thought I might collapse under the weight of it. No, this couldn't be real. This wasn't happening. But the reality stood in front of me. I stared at him, my mind refusing, fighting to process what I was seeing. Because standing there, in my bedroom, hiding in my closet, was my own damn brother. Not a stranger. Not some nameless, faceless man I could throw out of my house and never think about again. My brother. The blood in my veins turned ice cold. The betrayal hit harder than anything I could have imagined. It physically hurt. A slow, suffocating burn that started deep in my chest and spread to every inch of my body. My fingers twitched at my sides, my hands shaking. Not with fear, but with pure, unfiltered rage. I couldn't even speak. What the hell was there to say? He didn't say anything either. He just stood there, looking at me, his jaw tight, his eyes full of something that disgusted me, shame. Not regret, not panic, just shame, like a damn coward who had finally been caught. Emily took a step toward me, her voice shaky, desperate. Please let me explain. Explain? My vision blurred, my breathing ragged, my pulse pounding so loud I could barely hear her. Explain what? Exactly. Explain how my own flesh and blood had stabbed me in the back. Explain how my wife had betrayed me in the worst way possible. Explain how the two people I had loved and trusted most in this world had stood side by side and destroyed me. A dry, bitter laugh escaped my throat. I didn't even recognize the sound. She actually thought there were words that could fix this. I turned back to my brother. The weight of his silence, the audacity of it, made something snap inside me. I had always protected him, had always stood up for him, had always been there when no one else was. And this is how he repaid me? By creeping around in my house, in my bed, with my wife? I took a step closer, my hands clenching into fists. He didn't move, didn't flinch, just stood there like he was waiting for me to hit him. And for the first time in my life, I wanted to break something, to break him. Emily reached for my arm, her fingers barely brushing my sleeve. Please. I yanked away from her so hard she stumbled back a step. I didn't even look at her. She wasn't the one I was focused on anymore. I stared straight at him, my voice low and dangerous. How long? My brother's throat bobbed as he swallowed hard. But he still said nothing. That silence was my answer. Emily sniffled, tears welling in her eyes, but I didn't care. Not anymore, because the truth was standing right in front of me. And it was worse than I could have ever imagined. I turned back to her, my entire body shaking, not just from anger, but from something worse. Disbelief, betrayal, a heartbreak so deep it felt like it was physically tearing me apart. Explain? I repeated, my voice hoarse, barely above a whisper. My throat felt raw, like I had swallowed broken glass. How the hell do you explain this? Emily took a step toward me, her eyes brimming with tears. She looked broken, but I didn't care. Not anymore. She opened her mouth, but I cut her off before she could even try. No, don't. I lifted a hand, shaking my head. My breath came fast, uneven. I was barely holding it together. I didn't want her lies. I didn't want to hear excuses. But she spoke anyway. It's not what you think, she pleaded, her voice trembling. It's not. I let out a sharp, humorless laugh, the kind that doesn't come from amusement, but from sheer disbelief. Not what I think, I repeated, my voice laced with venom. You were hiding my brother in our damn closet. What exactly am I supposed to think, Emily? Neither of them answered. Because they couldn't. Because there was nothing to say. My hands clenched at my sides. My entire body burned with rage. But beneath that, beneath the fury and the betrayal and the complete loss of control, there was pain. A deep, gut-wrenching, soul-crushing pain. Because this was my wife. This was my brother, two of the people I trusted most in this world. And they had been sneaking behind my back, lying to me, laughing with me, sharing holidays, acting like a family, while keeping this secret buried beneath it all. I wanted to yell, to scream, to break something. Instead, I just stood there, breathing hard, feeling the weight of everything I had ever known shattering around me. Because that's what this was. A total destruction of everything. Whatever love I had for Emily, gone. Whatever loyalty I had for my brother, dead. Whatever trust one had in my own judgment, my own ability to see the people around me for who they really were, completely and utterly destroyed. Emily took another step forward, reaching out as if she could still fix this. "Please," she whispered. "I love you." I laughed again, a different kind of laugh this time. A hollow, empty sound. "No, you don't." Her face crumpled, and I didn't feel anything. Because whatever I had once felt for her, whatever love, whatever devotion, whatever loyalty, was already gone. And there was no coming back from this. I took a deep breath, then exhaled. My hands were still shaking, my pulse still pounding, but I forced myself to stay calm. I wasn't going to lose control. I wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of seeing me break. Because that's what they wanted, wasn't it? To see me shattered, to see me destroyed. Emily stood frozen, her face a mess of panic, regret, and something else, fear. My brother hadn't moved. He just stood there, silent, like a coward who knew he had no way out. I should have punched him. I should have screamed. I should have made them feel even a fraction of the pain they had just inflicted on me. But I didn't, because they weren't worth it. Instead, I let the silence hang heavy between us, thick and suffocating. And then I spoke. "You know what?" I said, my voice eerily quiet. Too quiet. Emily's eyes widened, her lips parting as if she already knew she wouldn't like what I was about to say. "You two deserve each other." A single cold sentence. That was all it took. Her face crumpled. "No, please don't." But I was already turning away, already walking toward the door, already done with this nightmare. I didn't need to hear any more. I didn't care what excuse she had. I didn't care what he had to say. Because in that moment I realized something. There was nothing left here for me. No love, no trust, no home, just lies. Lies that had been carefully crafted and buried beneath fake smiles, stolen moments, and whispered secrets behind my back. I reached for the doorknob, my fingers tightening around the cold metal. I could hear Emily sobbing behind me, could feel the tension radiating from my brother. But I didn't stop. Not this time. I pulled the door open. The cold night air rushed in, washing over me like a final, cleansing breath. And then I stepped out of that house, out of that life, out of their lies. And I never looked back.